The ongoing trade tensions between the United States and China have recently taken a new turn marked by a temporary truce that has sparked renewed discussions about tariffs and international relations. As the world grapples with the implications of this 90-day pause on tariffs, key players in both nations are weighing their options, potentially preparing for more aggressive strategies if negotiations falter. According to reports from Bloomberg, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has cautioned that tariff rates could revert to reciprocal levels if trade deals are not made during the pause. Speaking on CNN, Bessent emphasized President Trump has put them on notice that if you do not negotiate in good faith, you will ratchet back up to your April 2 level, referring to the 18 countries prioritized for trade negotiations by the U.S. administration. This warning underscores the precariousness of the current situation, as both nations seek to balance their economic interests while navigating the complexities of global trade dynamics. Underpinning the current negotiations is the economic fallout from tariffs, which have already begun to impact consumer prices and corporate earnings. Bessent attempted to downplay inflation concerns stemming from these trade policies, labeling Walmart's recent warnings about price hikes as a worst-case scenario. President Trump, however, has been vocal in his criticism of major retailers like Walmart, urging them to absorb tariff costs rather than pass them on to consumers. Walmart should stop trying to blame tariffs as the reason for raising prices throughout the chain, he asserted, highlighting the retailer's significant profits from the previous year. As the U.S. prepares to set new tariff rates in the coming weeks, the broader implications of these policies have become increasingly clear. Reports indicate that the uncertainty surrounding tariffs has contributed to a decline in consumer sentiment, with many households delaying purchases amid fears of rising prices. A recent survey revealed that 2/3 of small business owners feel negatively impacted by the ongoing tariff war, reflecting a widespread sentiment of unease across the market. In Europe, the ramifications of U.S. tariffs are also being felt. The European Commission has warned that tariff uncertainty is pushing euro area inflation below the European Central Bank's target for the upcoming year. This ripple effect illustrates how interconnected global economies are, as decisions made in Washington can have far-reaching impacts across the Atlantic. The situation is not without its complexities. While the U.S. government aims to foster negotiations, China remains cautious, with state-run media suggesting that the 90-day tariff truce is insufficient. Observers note that both countries are leveraging this pause to reassess their positions and consider potential long-term agreements. The recent developments have prompted speculation about how these negotiations will evolve, particularly as key meetings are anticipated in the coming weeks. As tensions continue to simmer, the international community is left to ponder the potential outcomes of this trade standoff. Analysts suggest that the next few months will be critical in determining the future of U.S.-China relations, with both nations poised to make strategic moves that could either lead to a resolution or escalate into further conflict. With economic indicators shifting and consumer confidence wavering, the world will be watching closely to see how these negotiations unfold and what long-term impacts they may have on global trade. In a significant development for global economics, the trade relationship between the United States and China has taken a new turn amidst an ongoing battle over tariffs. Following a tumultuous period marked by escalating tensions and hefty tariffs, both nations agreed to a 90-day truce that saw the effective tariff rate on Chinese goods drop from an alarming 145% to a more manageable range of 30 to 50%. Conversely, tariffs on U.S. imports to China are set to fall to around 10%. This agreement, reached during talks in Switzerland, signals a potential shift in the dynamics of this critical economic relationship, but the underlying issues remain complex and unresolved. As the world's largest economy grapples with its burgeoning trade deficit, the U.S. administration views the current account deficit as a troubling indicator of economic health, primarily blaming China for its record trade surplus. In 2024, China recorded a staggering $1 trillion surplus, underscoring a long-standing imbalance that has fueled protectionist sentiments in Washington. President Trump has often characterized this deficit as a threat to American manufacturing, arguing that tariffs are necessary to correct these imbalances and restore the U.S. industrial base. Despite this recent de-escalation, experts caution that the truce may merely mask deeper economic issues that need to be addressed. The notion of a great rebalancing between the U.S. and China is not just a matter of tariffs, it requires fundamental changes in domestic economic policies. The administration's reliance on tariffs as a primary tool for economic adjustment has drawn skepticism, with many economists arguing that such measures are insufficient for meaningful rebalancing. George Saravilos of Deutsche Bank emphasized this point, stating, "The U.S. cannot close its very large current account deficit unless it closes its fiscal deficit too." Recent statements from both U.S. and Chinese officials indicated mutual recognition of the need for economic adjustments, with commitments to work towards a more balanced trade relationship. Yet observers express concern that without substantial policy changes from either side, the likelihood of achieving this balance remains slim. The U.S. administration's continued focus on fiscal profligacy, evidenced by proposed tax cuts and spending plans, suggests a reluctance to embrace the austerity measures necessary for true economic rebalancing. In the short term, the truce may offer a respite from the intense trade hostilities that have dominated headlines. But the implications for key industries are already becoming apparent. Major retailers like Walmart are warning consumers of potential price hikes as they navigate the complexities introduced by tariffs. Walmart CEO Doug McMillon noted that rising costs from tariffs could soon lead to increased prices for shoppers, despite the company's efforts to maintain low prices. Trump's insistence that corporations eat the tariffs rather than pass costs on to consumers adds another layer of pressure on businesses already grappling with thin profit margins. Meanwhile, the economic landscape in China reveals a mixed picture. Although factory output has shown resilience, retail sales fell short of expectations, raising questions about domestic consumption in the wake of tariff pressures. Analysts have begun to revise forecasts regarding Chinese stimulus measures, suggesting that the urgency for large-scale fiscal intervention may have diminished as the country adapts to the evolving trade environment. Moving forward, the future of U.S.-China relations will depend heavily on the sincerity of negotiations and the willingness of both countries to implement necessary reforms. If the current inertia continues, analysts warn that the U.S. may adopt a more confrontational stance towards other trading partners, particularly the European Union, which could provoke further trade disputes. The broader implications of this trade war extend beyond immediate tariffs. They threaten to redefine global economic alliances and reshape international trade dynamics. As the dust settles on this latest chapter in U.S.-China trade relations, the world watches closely for signs of genuine progress or persistent stagnation. With both sides still navigating a complex web of economic interests and political pressures, the path ahead remains uncertain, but the stakes have never been higher for the global economy, amid escalating tensions between the United States and China. Japan finds itself at a critical juncture, re-evaluating its security strategy in light of evolving geopolitical dynamics. As the U.S. increases pressure on its allies for greater contributions to collective defense, Japan is being scrutinized for its perceived shortcomings in regional security commitments. This scrutiny not only stems from U.S. expectations but also from a growing realization that Japan's long-standing reliance on American military support may no longer suffice in a rapidly changing security landscape. Recent developments underscore the urgency of the situation. The U.S. has enhanced its military presence in Japan, establishing a Joint Force Command, but this upgrade comes with caveats. Analysts caution that the U.S. could easily retract its military resources, shifting focus to other strategic priorities if Japan fails to bolster its defense contributions. In light of the increasing assertiveness of the Chinese military, particularly the People's Liberation Army (PLA), Japan's limited capacity for independent defense poses a significant risk to its national security and regional interests. China's military modernization is a primary concern for Japan. The PLA's aggressive activities in the East and South China Seas, including incursions into Japanese territorial waters, highlight a troubling trend. Notably, the ongoing tensions surrounding Taiwan amplify these concerns as Japan recognizes that any conflict over Taiwan would have immediate repercussions for its own security. The geographic proximity of Japan to Taiwan, coupled with its reliance on critical sea lines of communication that traverse the Taiwan Strait, underscores the potential vulnerabilities Japan faces in the event of a conflict. Japan's strategic calculations must now incorporate the reality that U.S. defense commitments cannot be taken for granted. The Biden administration's push for allies to increase defense spending has placed Japan in a precarious position. With the country's goal to elevate defense expenditures from under 1% to 2% of GDP by 2027 seen as insufficient by some U.S. analysts. Notably, Elbridge Colby, a former U.S. defense official, has emphasized that Japan's military capabilities currently fall short of what is necessary for effective self-defense and regional deterrence. In response to these pressures, Japan is likely to seek closer cooperation with the U.S. while simultaneously enhancing its domestic defense capabilities and diversifying its security partnerships. The urgency for Japan to act is palpable as it grapples with internal challenges such as a declining birth rate and an aging population, which complicate its defense posture. Reforming its defense structure, increasing military spending, and shoring up food self-sufficiency are essential steps for Japan to enhance its deterrent capabilities and secure its national interests. As these dynamics unfold, they coincide with broader global concerns over technological competition, particularly in semiconductor production, which is critical for both military and civilian applications. The ongoing U.S.-China chip war has significant implications for Japan, especially given Taiwan's role as a leader in semiconductor manufacturing. The potential for conflict in Taiwan poses a direct threat not only to regional stability but also to the global supply chain, which is vital for technological advancement. The conversation surrounding Japan's security is thus intertwined with the larger narrative of U.S.-China relations, where technological supremacy plays a central role. Experts argue that both nations must establish ethical standards for artificial intelligence and semiconductor development while navigating the complexities of their intertwined economies. The challenge lies in balancing national security interests with the realities of global supply chains. In conclusion, Japan stands at a critical crossroads. Faced with the imperative to redefine its defense strategy amidst shifting geopolitical currents, the interplay between regional security concerns and U.S. expectations will shape Japan's future trajectory. As Japan enhances its military capabilities and seeks to assert greater autonomy in its defense policy, the broader Indo-Pacific region will watch closely for the implications of these developments on regional stability. The road ahead will require not only strategic foresight but also a commitment to international cooperation in an increasingly multipolar world.